Tonight, the first flights taking refugees to Rwanda can go ahead. We speak to a Syrian man who's won a reprieve and has joined family in Glasgow after being released from detention.
We had to act quickly, of course. I think, like everybody, all lawyers, even the Home Office, this is so new that we're all waiting to see how it plays out day by day.
Also making the headlines, burned out and broken. Staff in Scotland's A&E departments say the pressure is becoming too much as waiting times get ever longer.
In sport, we need to stick together. A rallying cry from the Scotland camp as they head out to face Armenia.
And the school children hoping to be a roaring success as they take to the stage to perform The Lion King. I'm Kellyanne Woodland in Edinburgh.
And I'm John Mackay in Glasgow. This is the STV News at 6. Good evening. A Syrian man facing deportation to Rwanda has told STV News of his relief at a reprieve, just 24 hours before the first flight is due to leave under the UK government's new immigration policy. The father of three's case is the first Scottish lawyers are involved in. They're now preparing a second to go before a judge tomorrow.
The 27-year-old was released and reunited with relatives in Glasgow after being held in a detention centre in Gatwick. As legal challenges continue against the flights, he's been speaking to our chief reporter, Sharon Frew.
Crossing the Channel to reach the UK. 30 minutes after this footage was filmed, the small inflatable boat carrying 40 people began to sink. After the Coast Guard stepped in, the man who we are calling Abdul Rahman was one of those detained. He was taken to the Brook House Detention Centre near Gatwick, where he was told his claim for asylum would not be considered in the UK. Instead, he would be sent to Rwanda.
We are on our way to save our life, and now you want to send us to Rwanda. I can't describe it, which is like a mental torture.
The father of three is able to watch this footage from his lawyer's office 4 weeks later because he was allowed to make one phone call from detention to his sister in Glasgow. She and her family have made their home in the city after they were given refugee status 5 years ago. A lawyer here then applied for bail, and despite Home Office objections, the application was successful.
What makes this case quite unique is that in the event the detailed representations are refused and it then goes to a judicial review, that will be in the Scottish court, it will be in the Court of Session, so it gives a chance for the case to be looked at through Scottish eyes.
The UK government say its new policy aims to crack down on people smuggling and the criminal gangs who exploit those desperate to make this crossing. Abdul Rahman paid more than £10,000 to make his 4-month journey. The father shows us the scars on his head and hands. He says he was tortured while detained in Syria and is unable to return. His wife and children are still there, and he hopes to apply for refugee status to bring them to Scotland.
I am very happy for that because I have been released, but I am worried for the people who are still there in detention as well.
On the basis of the result we achieved for this client, we received the referral of another gentleman who I have a bail hearing for tomorrow. He has a connection to Glasgow as well, and if successful in the bail hearing tomorrow, it will be our intention to bring him here.
For both men, this is the first round of what could be a very lengthy legal process. Sharon Frew, STV News, Glasgow.
Well, in the last few hours, the Court of Appeal has found that the first flight taking asylum seekers to Rwanda can go ahead tomorrow. Live now to our Westminster correspondent, Catherine Sampson. And Catherine, the UK government is facing various legal challenges on this, but ministers have been defending their policy today.
Yes, and the Prime Minister actually said he thought that legal challenges to this were always going to be inevitable. One of his supportive Tory backbenchers actually said, in his view, this was lefty lawyers trying to block things. Now, ministers have insisted from the start of this, they believe that Rwanda is fundamentally safe and secure. Priti Patel, the Home Secretary, wasn't speaking on camera today, but a short time ago, a Home Office minister was challenged in the chamber by an SNP MP.
Inaction is not a responsible option when people are drowning and ruthless criminals are profiting from human misery. Decisive leadership is required to tackle the smuggling of people through illicit and criminal means.
This will not hurt horrendous people smugglers one jot, but it will badly hurt those who have fled persecution and sought protection here, and this policy brings shame on the UK internationally.
So there is actually another legal challenge still going on tonight, but it does look at this stage that the flight can take off tomorrow, even though there may only now be a handful of people on it. Earlier, the Prime Minister's spokesperson said he wasn't aware of any lower limit below which they wouldn't run that flight. So there may be questions if it does take off tomorrow over whether the cost of all this will outweigh any benefits. In terms of the overall policy, it's still to be determined whether that is lawful. That's going to happen in a court in July.
All right, Catherine, with the latest. Thank you. A junior doctor has told STV News staff in Scotland's hospital emergency departments are burnt out and broken. And the Health Secretary has acknowledged those working in the NHS are completely knackered.
If you need treatment, you may well have to wait longer than you should. The latest figures show just 69% of people going into A&E are dealt with inside the 4-hour target. Here's our senior reporter, Gordon Cree.
Layla is on the front line of the health service as a junior doctor in emergency medicine. Tonight she's on shift at the Inverclyde Royal, and she says colleagues across the country are crumbling under the pressure.
Staff are just burnt out, broken. It's not unusual to see people crying. I've definitely had tearful times at work, on the way home from work, on the way to work. It's just pretty bleak. Loads of people are leaving. I've lost count of the number of people I've heard that are leaving.
When STV News visited A&E at Edinburgh Royal back in March, we saw patients on trolleys in the corridors. Across Scotland, those problems don't seem to be easing. In the most recent week, nearly 27,000 people visited casualty departments. Almost a third of them were not seen, admitted, transferred or discharged within the 4-hour target.
And we know from the Royal College of Emergency Medicine and papers and research that when patients wait unnecessarily, that then can lead to people dying for no reason. It's really upsetting and it's simply not good enough.
The Health Secretary today described NHS and social care staff as completely knackered by the pandemic, but he had to cancel appointments such as an interview with us because of COVID in his own family.
We are working really hard in government and in the NHS at every level possible to try to reduce the strain that's being felt, but there is no doubt it is still challenging.
There are signs COVID cases may now be on the rise again, but experts say we shouldn't panic.
We've decoupled the relationship between infection and severe disease, and that's due to vaccines and treatments. In the current spring booster programme, I think almost 9 in 10 people over the age of 75 have had that 4th dose.
With the knock-on effects of the pandemic being felt across the health service, the chance of some respite for people like Layla looks a long way off.
So, Gordon, where are we with COVID at the moment?
Well, we're not testing in the same way that we used to, are we? But the ONS runs a very good surveillance programme. So we know in the most recent week, 1 in 40 people in Scotland had COVID. That's against about 1 in 70 in England, 1 in 75 in Wales. And we know too that the numbers are ticking up. Experts have always said there'd probably be another wave. But as Linda Bald mentioned there, that link between the virus and severe illness has been weakened. So there is less concern about people ending up in hospital. In fact, when I checked today, there are just 8 people in intensive care in Scotland with COVID. So optimistic signs that they're well placed to cope with that over the summer. Although if you talk to people in the NHS like Layla, one thing that comes across is that many of the current problems predate the pandemic.
All right, Gordon, thanks very much for joining us.
Many of us wear one, but do you know your smartwatch could be a lifesaver? Andrew Thompson went to see a doctor after an alarm on the device kept going off. He discovered he had a rare heart condition and urgently needed a pacemaker. He's been speaking to our reporter, Caroline Lewis.
As a keen runner regularly clocking up 30 kilometres a week, 44-year-old Andrew Thompson believed he was the picture of health. Little did he know that wasn't the case.
My watch beeped and it said my heart had dropped below 40 beats per minute. And ignored it, thinking it's maybe not close enough to my wrist. Then I wore it at night time a few times, and it beeped 2 or 3 times during the night, and that's when I googled it and I thought, yeah, this could be quite serious.
When his GP measured his heart rate at just 31 beats per minute, he was quickly referred to a cardiologist.
He showed me a printout of my heartbeat, so it showed it through the day, so it was like, looked okay during the day, night time it started to slow down. Then at 7 in the morning it was just a flat line. So I think your heart's meant to stop maximum 2.5 seconds, and mine was 7 seconds. So he just said, you need a pacemaker. And that's when I just kind of like froze and thought, that wasn't what was I expecting.
It was only when we prospectively recorded his electrocardiogram using a device similar to this one here, which he wore for 14 days. It was abundantly clear that he was actually dropping his heart rate into his 20s and with prolonged pauses where his heart doesn't contract or beat at all.
Left undiagnosed, Andrew's condition could have had serious consequences.
In time, I would have blacked out at some point. That's how usually they would see somebody like me. So if I hadn't been my watch, I would have potentially blacked out when I was driving my car, or because I had 0 symptoms.
And more of us turning to wearable tech is helping doctors make more diagnoses.
It's absolutely changed the practice of cardiology. There are certain conditions that can be detected very readily by a smartwatch, but it's also proved immensely useful in making diagnoses in patients in whom it was sometimes previously difficult to pin down the rhythm abnormality that patient was experiencing.
Andrew now has a pacemaker that keeps his heart in check, and thanks to his watch, he's now looking forward to the future. Caroline Lewis, STV News.
Now, it's been much anticipated, and tomorrow Nicola Sturgeon, the First Minister, will set out her case for the next independence campaign.
She'll be launching the first of a new series of papers called Building a New Scotland. But first, she sat down with our political editor, Colin Mackay, to talk about the case she plans to make. And Colin joins us now. So, Colin, what can you tell us?
Well, Nicola Sturgeon would probably have been doing this weeks ago, but she caught COVID, so it's been put on hold. But tomorrow she will stand in Bute House alongside the Green Party co-leader Patrick Harvie, who's also a minister in her government, and they will set out the case for independence as they see it now, also the case for another independence referendum. And when I spoke to the First Minister in Bute House earlier on, she seemed pretty confident that if people had known in 2014 what they know now about Brexit and Boris Johnson's leadership, there might have been a different result.
There have been many changes since the referendum in 2014. In many ways, the world is a different place. The UK is certainly a very different place. In fact, I think if we could turn the clock back and people in 2014 could have foreseen the path that the UK would have taken out of the European Union, Boris Johnson as Prime Minister, then Scotland undoubtedly would have voted yes back then. Tomorrow's paper will be very much a scene setter, comparing the UK and Scotland's economic, social performance with that of a range of comparator countries across Europe.
When will we actually see the referendum bill?
My government was elected with a mandate to deliver an independence referendum. We intend to honour that mandate. The other principle is the rule of law. We must make sure this is a lawful process. If we had a UK government that had any respect for democracy, we would undertake the same processes in 2014. In the absence of that, the competence of the Scottish Parliament to legislate is contested. I concede that. Therefore, we need to navigate a way that can deliver a lawful process. That work is underway.
Now, you want the referendum next year. What will we get first, a ferry or a referendum?
The ferries are under construction and we're focusing on delivering those. Equally, my government won a mandate for an independence referendum and will focus on delivering that as well.
Now, in response to this, the Conservatives tonight have said that launching another independence referendum in the midst of a cost of living crisis is absolutely shameful. Labour say that the SNP plans make Brexit look like a walk in the park. Now, I did also ask the First Minister about public sector strikes and pay demands. Nicola Sturgeon was very clear that public sector workers deserve a fair pay deal, but she didn't say how she would go about funding that. What we're getting tomorrow is the first of a series of papers. Nicola Sturgeon accepts that she still has a lot of questions to answer after 2014. So there will be papers on things like currency and pensions, but what she's doing just now is firing the starting gun on the campaign, and you can see more of that interview on Scotland Tonight and on the STV News website.
He went out to play and he never came home. The harrowing words from a mother who lost her 13-year-old son by drowning. Speaking for the first time, William McNally's parents say educating children on water safety will save lives. They want others to know the life-threatening dangers of playing and swimming in open waters. Vanessa Taff reports.
He was a character. Everywhere he went, he caused some sort of hilarity. He was just lovely.
And he always had a smile for everybody.
William McNally was just 13 when he got into difficulty in the River Gryfe. His friends tried to rescue him. He later died in hospital.
A massive, massive shock, because he just wanted to play, and he came in from school and get changed and said, "Bye, Mum." I said, "Bye, be careful." And he never came home.
A year on, and his family are still coming to terms with the scale of their loss.
It's been devastating. Absolutely devastating. You're still waiting. Walking through the door, which most days I realise that that's not going to happen. But you still wait and you look for them when you see kids outside. It's been absolutely devastating.
When you wake up, it's kind of the first thing that comes into your head that he's not here. But processing things with it is just a struggle. You know what I mean? You know that you're never going to see him, but it doesn't stop you feeling the way you do. It's as if part of you's been ripped away and just hit with pain.
Last year, 105 people lost their life in waters around Scotland. Signage like this with location information has been placed at a number of open water sites. It's hoped it could help emergency services more easily find those in trouble. William's parents want others to be aware of the life-threatening dangers of open water swimming.
But the only message I can put across is safety in numbers. Know who you're going with and make sure the same numbers come back home. And I just hope that the same thing doesn't happen to somebody else.
Flowing water like this may look tempting during the warmer summer months, but the McNally family are urging caution. Vanessa Taff, STV News.
Powerful message. Well, change of pace now. Ronnie is here with the sport, and please don't mention Scotland.
Only show in town, John. Only show in town.
Get your fill of the action. STV Sport, sponsored by Papa John's Pizza.
Yes, good evening. Scotland boss Steve Clarke admits Saturday's defeat to the Republic of Ireland was a head-scratcher, but says their full focus is now on getting the win against Armenia. Meanwhile, Callum McGregor says everyone must trust the manager and believes the blueprint for success is still there, as Sheila McLaren now reports.
Back on the training ground and looking to get back on track after a weekend to forget. Saturday's humbling in Dublin left the Tartan Army seething and the manager struggling to work out what had gone wrong. Today, as Steve Clarke prepared to take his side to Armenia, he wanted to focus on what lies ahead.
Listen, people can write and say what they want. There's nothing I can do to control that. The most important thing is what we do next. Football's a strange game at times. Sometimes you get a result that you don't really expect. And I don't think anyone... I think probably the reaction to the game on Saturday is as much a case of where did that come from. And it was a little bit of a head-scratcher.
The defeat to Ireland came just 10 days after the World Cup disappointment against Ukraine. But amidst the criticism, Callum McGregor believes everyone should remember how far this squad has come in recent years.
Yeah, the blueprint for success is there. So it's just about trying to learn from it. You know, it's small details. And like I said, we have to stick together now when you come under criticism as a group. That's the time where you stand together. You stand by your mates and you stand by the management team and you come through it in a stronger sense.
Scotland are now playing catch-up in the Nations League group, but the manager refused to attach added importance to tomorrow's game.
I think there's pressure in every game when you're representing your country. There's pressure in every game of football, so I don't think there's any more pressure on this game than there would be normally. It's always nice when you win. Everyone always feels a little bit better when you win.
Clark says they have significant injuries and admits there will be some rotation for the crucial clash in Yerevan. Sheila McLaren, STV News.
Now, as Team Scotland continue their preparations for the Commonwealth Games in Birmingham, one sport we're pinning medal hopes on is boxing. National coach Craig McAvoy says the 8 fighters named in the squad will be brave, bold and at their best. Well, Ollie Dickinson went along to the National High Performance Centre in Glasgow.
Well, the countdown to the Commonwealth Games is well and truly on. Just over a month to go until that opening ceremony in Birmingham. One sport that's hoping to bring home the medals is boxing. Delighted to say that Craig McAvoy, one of the national coaches, joins me now. Craig, what is the team looking like? What kind of shape are they in?
We're going to have 8 boxers all out. They're going to be brave, bold and at their best. We've just come off the back of the last 9 months, our first ever senior world medal. Sam just won our first ever bronze medal at the Europeans for 16 years. You know, in performances to boot against world level, opposition. These boxers are going to be more than ready come the games time.
Scotland's got such success when it comes to boxing. 65 medals across the games in the boxing. You want to add to that tally, don't you?
Absolutely. We've got 8 boxers selected and all 8 seriously can go and win a medal. Like I say, they're going to be at their best. There's a lot of belief now. This is the first games we're moving into where the boxers have had a full-time programme to support them on their way. Obviously in the High Performance Centre, ring from the Glasgow Games, we won 2 gold medals. We're looking to get better than that this time, but no, we're going to be in a good position and the whole nation's looking forward to it as well.
Well, good luck, Craig. As Craig said, this is a bit of boxing history behind us. Josh Taylor and Charlie Flynn won their 2014 Commonwealth golds in that very ring. One man who wants to win a medal, I'm sure, a gold is Sam Hickey. Sam, are you confident ahead of this?
Yeah, I'm buzzing. To be selected for the Commonwealth Games is huge. Big achievement for myself. Obviously, I've wanted to go to these since I was a wee boy, watching Glasgow, Delhi, stuff like that. So to go to the Games is massive, but we're just looking for that gold medal now.
You mentioned the gold medal there. Is that really forefront in your mind?
Yeah, definitely. You don't go to these tournaments not going for a gold medal. So like anything but that, I'm not really looking for. I'm wanting the gold.
Well, good luck, Sam. The Games get underway on the 28th of July and the world will be watching, not just Scotland, the whole world, to see if our athletes, and in particular our boxers, can add to that incredible medal haul over the Games.
Andy Murray is hopeful an injury picked up at the weekend won't affect the rest of the grass court season as he prepares to play at Queen's. The news comes as Cameron Norrie was knocked out of the tournament. The British number 1 lost 2-1 to Bulgarian Gregor Dimitrov in the first round. Murray is set to take on Lorenzo Sonego tomorrow. To rugby, and as the Glasgow Warriors' quest for a new head coach continues, the club have confirmed they'll start their pre-season in Inverness against Worcester Warriors. Meanwhile, Scotland's women's team have secured over £500,000 from the SRU in preparation for the World Cup in October.
We are going to be based up in Edinburgh training as a squad, which is really exciting because we've never had the opportunity to do that for such a prolonged period of time. So it's exciting for us to see where we can get to with that opportunity because, like you say, we are so used to being kind of remote or separate or in small groups around the country or down south, and then coming together for really small periods ahead of tournaments. So this is really new for us, but very exciting.
Last bit of news, and Kilmarnock have confirmed the signing of Kerr McInroy from Celtic. The 21-year-old signs on a 2-year deal. Bye for now.
Get your fill of the action. STV Sports, sponsored by Papa John's Pizza.
Sean has the weather and see all that heat boiling up to the south. It ain't coming here.
A light drizzle is coming in from the west. TUI Blue Hotels, sponsor STV Weather.
So yes, wait until you see the burny looking colours coming onto the map as we go through the week. Look at the oranges, the reds building up across East Anglia, the southeast of England. Temperatures peaking there, low 30s. We're on the edge of that heat. Temperatures for us peaking 21, 22 degrees Friday. Very briefly, because then much cooler air comes back in from the northwest. So temperatures rising, but not quite a heat wave for us. Temperatures by night through most of this week staying on the higher side, around 10 to 12 degrees. There'll be a fair amount of cloud coming going tonight. We still hang on to shower outbreaks of rain in the northwest of the country, but elsewhere becoming largely dry. Now tomorrow across central and southern parts, across much of Lanarkshire, Ayrshire, Dumfries and Galway, a lot of dry weather with sunshine. We'll see some showers popping up into the afternoon. Shouldn't really come to too much, but with light winds, highs here 17, 18 degrees, especially as we head a wee bit further east. Grangemouth, Falkirk, Stirling shouldn't actually feel too bad at all in the sunshine. Very pleasant. In the northwest though, quite cool across much of Argyll. Also the Highlands 14 or 15 degrees with the outbreaks of rain. And for us here, we still hang on to a lot of cloud on Wednesday. Best of the sunshine, the highest temperatures southern and eastern areas. So temperatures peaking Thursday and Friday, probably up to about 19 or 20 degrees Celsius, but you can see it isn't really a cracker, is it? Got some showers, some rain around Thursday and Friday, and then we'll see the cooler air coming back in at the weekend. Bye-bye.
TUI Blue Hotels. Sponsor STV Weather.
And finally, 600 primary school children from across Scotland are getting the opportunity to perform on the stage at the Edinburgh Playhouse.
The pupils were selected by Scottish Opera and Disney to perform numbers from The Lion King and Aladdin. And over the next few months, they've been working on singing, stage direction and choreography ahead of the big show. Here's Polly Bartlett.
Putting the finishing touches to their performance. In just a few hours' time, these primary school pupils will take to the Edinburgh Playhouse stage.
It's Lion King and it's really, really fun. It's been really exciting because it's just getting closer and closer to the show.
It all started with just learning a couple of wee bits from songs, and then next thing we knew, we were at Edinburgh Playhouse.
It was super scary, but when you start singing and you can understand it and you can do it normally and you don't feel nervous anymore, you just feel perfect.
Well, I had a cry in the rehearsal, so I don't really know how I'm going to be later on. Just feel immense pride, and not only pride when I look at the children, but also when I look at the staff who've been so heavily invested in it, and can see the pride absolutely beaming out of them too.
Artists from Scottish Opera have been guiding the pupils through singing, choreography and stage directing. This afternoon they'll perform to their parents after months of hard work on stage at the Edinburgh Playhouse, the biggest theatre in the UK.
They've performed in their school for their school community and their parents, but this is just the icing on the cake because they get to perform on a professional stage, and hopefully we're creating lifelong memories of how brilliant it is to be engaged in the arts.
This is the first time these schools have been able to put on a show in more than 2 years, and getting to this point hasn't been easy.
It was COVID, wasn't there? Well, despite all that, we did do our best to get into primary schools and sprinkle the Disney magic. Whether we did Zoom rehearsals, sometimes we're outside in the playground with the pouring rain with jackets on rehearsing, but we got there, we got through it.
How will you feel when you see it all unfolding?
Oh, I'm going to be in bed. I'll be crying my eyes out. I'm even crying my eyes out thinking about it now. Yeah, these kids, just seen them all here today. It's just brilliant.
There won't be a dry eye in the house when the curtain rises on this performance. Polly Bartlett, STV News, Edinburgh.
And I am sure they will be a roaring success.
Oh, roaring, very good. I'm back with Scotland tonight, 10:40. Thanks for watching. Have a good night.
Good night.